Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, September the 11th, 2018. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week here at a different time, although this is usually the time we do come on the air because we're usually late, but at least we're on but tonight we actually scheduled it for 10, so only a few minutes after that. Um, so, as always, as I start the show, let me remind you all of the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show, have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And of course, you can also find us on Facebook. Just search in the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and then like us so you can follow us. Before I get into all the things that are going to be going down this week and beyond and all that kind of stuff. Um, Obviously, today is the 17th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. I'm sure many of you, if you've been, on either on social media or watching TV or what have you, it's been all over today. Tributes and reminders and all kinds of things that have been out there today, obviously. And um, one of the things I talk about this every year because we usually not about 80% of the time we do a show on the anniversary because Tuesdays and Thursdays, whatever. Um, but since we've done this show for the last 8 years, every time I've spoken about this, I always mention how important sports was in the healing after 9/11. Before a lot of television, regular programming came back on television, before um, really before anything else got back into normalcy, it was the first thing that came back. It was the first kind of thing that made try to bring us back to normalcy. Um, Again, before TV shows came back and game shows came back and other things came back, sports came back, and in the form of baseball. Baseball, more specifically, was the thing that helped a lot of people heal. It took your mind off of what was going on in the world, the fear, the tragedy. It gave you an escape for a couple hours. And then slowly but surely, other things got reintroduced, like football and other programming. Um, and you know, I remember thinking back then, you could see it at all the announcers' faces and coaches. Is this right? Should we be doing this? And then you would see how happy it made people and how relaxed people got and how it did give them that escape and that emotional outlet. And then it made you feel like, okay, you're doing the right thing. And every time we talk about any kind of tragedy um, on this show, it's always a hard thing to do because how do you discuss it, but then how do you come out of it? How can you talk about things that aren't nearly as important as what you just discussed, the tragedy of what you just discussed? And it's not easy, and especially when you don't have commercials, it's not easy at all. But you mention, but you talk about it in terms of, hey, you know what? Yes, but everything else we're going to discuss is less important. It's more trivial. Um, and it's escapism because that's really what it's about. You do need to escape from real life. You do need to try to kind of just get not move on or get on with it, but you do need to try to kind of, you know what, I have to think about something else for a little bit. I need another outlet, emotional outlet. I need to just let things settle, think about something else, talk about something else, watch something else. And that's what when we do these shows, in the aftermath of tragedy, or what people did after 9/11, when anybody did a show or sporting events or anything like that, you kind of went from it from the standpoint of, you know what, I'm here to try to give you an escape for a few hours, for a few minutes, whatever. And that's what it was about. um and sports did that in that time. Baseball specifically did that in that time. And it was quite I think we all remember George W. Bush, former President George W. Bush, throwing out the first pitch at the World Series. God bless the various God bless Americas across the country. It's just some wonderful um, um, displays of unity and patriotism and and just so many just heartwarming things to see in the aftermath, people helping one another, being kind to one another. And it was just in the aftermath of tragedy, it just goes to show you how strong we all are and how we come through for each other in the aftermath of tragedy. And those are some of the things I think about when I think about this day, is the things that people did for one another and how people came together, and how sports helped us heal, and so many other things. I mean, there's so many things that go through your mind when you think about this day 17 years ago. So, um, they say never forget, and you should never forget, but don't just think about what happened that day on this anniversary. Think about it all the time, because so many people lost their lives that day. Innocent people, people trying to help each other, people trying to be heroes, people that just went to work like we all do every day, or went to school, not to school, but like went to wherever they have to go for the day, or just were walking the streets, or whatever they were doing. And then there's people that didn't die that day, but became sick because of things that happened. A lot of first responders developed illnesses and diseases from what happened that day. And just the aftermath of this is continuing to go on. And it goes on in our daily lives. There's different security situations that we go through now, and the different things and the way the world is now, what we think about now when we go to places, and it's a completely different world than it was before that day 17 years ago. So we should never forget what transpired that day. Think about the people that lost their lives, all the people impacted, um, and just think about how different this world is, and think about, and this is important, especially I don't want to politicize anything, and I don't want to, today I've seen too much today, people going into the usual political stuff, and today's not a day for that. I really wish people didn't do that. I know, um, I just don't think it's the right day for that. But I will say this, like I said a couple minutes ago, the way people treated each other after 9/11, the kindness that they showed to one another, the unification of our country, the way people responded and unified and stood behind each other, and petty differences and nonsense was put aside for each other and for the country and for doing what's best for everybody. It would be nice if people remembered that, and did that again, and did that now. It shouldn't have to need a tragedy to do that. It should be done anyway. It should be done every day. We should be treating each other better every day. And we should be, you know, treating people with kindness and understanding and patience, and listening to what each other has to say, even if you disagree, and helping one another, and unifying with others, whether we have disagreements or not, and uniting together as a country, as one people. That's what we should be doing. You don't need a tragedy to do that. It should be done anyway. So I wish people would remember that, because I think that's one of the best ways you can honor those that lost their lives that day, and continue to lose their lives because of things that happened that day. So, but again, as I mentioned, don't forget. Don't just think of think of that. Don't just think of what happened that day on the anniversary. Think of it all the time, because it's that's important to never forget, and to think about that every single day, not just on the anniversary every year. So, um, we remember those that lost their lives that day 17 years ago. May they rest in peace, and to those that have lost their lives since that day, that were because of something that was happened that day, whether they contracted diseases, illnesses, whatever. Again, may they rest in peace. And our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to all those that were impacted that day, and lost somebody, all those that lost somebody that day, or had people that became sick because of something that happened that day. We could go on and on. The impact is still being felt. As I mentioned, to this day, and it will continue to be felt. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to all those impacted by that day. Um, and it's a horrific day in our history. We'll never forget. We shouldn't forget. And um, It's just crazy to think it's been 17 years. It's crazy to think it's been 17 years. It really is. And, again, we're going to talk about other things here tonight, things that are far less important and more trivial, as I mentioned. But, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about them. And we're going to try to give you some escape here on this anniversary, some time to talk about more trivial things like sports and other things like that. And hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an escape and a way to kind of get your mind off this day that we need to pause to reflect, but also um you know again, um always, as always, sometimes you need a little escape too. So um and that's what we'll do. So we're going to step away, because I have to check on the feed here because it looks like it's kind of lagging a little bit. So there might be a problem with that. So just give me a minute, folks. And of course, we don't have commercials. So when we step away, that means that there's not going to be anything on screen. So that's kind of the downside to not having commercials or anything like that. But we're going to step away for just a moment, while I check on this feed here because something's not right with it. It's kind of lagging behind and whatnot. So um, we'll be right back in just a moment here. So just hang tight for about a minute and we'll be right back on. We'll get right into um, the far less important things we're going to be talking about here on this anniversary of one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tragedies we've ever experienced as a country. Um, so yeah, just hang tight. We'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, and we're back. So thank you for your patience there. Looks like everything's back up and running. So we should be good to go. All right, so let's get into again far less important things. So again, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, first of two shows this week. Tonight we're just going to do some sports, and we have a lot of it is with the NFL now with football. It's really good that we have two shows again because football takes up so much time, and now that we don't do an individual football show and stuff like that, it just makes things more difficult. So it's good that we have this show just for sports because it's really going to be half football, half baseball. So this gives us a little bit more time to let things breathe and kind of go into things. So all sports nights, we'll talk about NFL week 1, look ahead to week 2, make some picks, all that good stuff. We'll do a little bit with college football, not a lot, because you all know how I feel about college football. It really doesn't start to pick up until right around late October when the playoff rankings start to come out and whatnot. So we'll dive into some college football. We'll do some baseball here as we come down the stretch here to the final less than 20 games now of the MLB season. So we'll talk a little bit of baseball as well, and that'll be the show tonight. And then Thursday, we'll be coming at you again from live from 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be going with that time again on Thursday. We're kind of experimenting here. I'll explain more later on. So Thursday night, 10 o'clock from Eastern time, we're going to be doing a little bit of entertainment, box office beat. No TV highlights yet. We'll be bringing those back in a few weeks when the fall TV season starts to get going, the fall TV season is a little bit later this year. That's the way they're doing things. God knows why. Of course, the Emmys are on a Monday this year, and God knows why that's happening. But we'll do a little bit of entertainment in the box office beat, and then we'll jump right into some wrestling. Here is we'll preview WWE's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view event, which will be coming up this Sunday. We'll talk about that on Thursday and do a little bit with Raw and SmackDown, other wrestling stuff as well. That will be on Thursday of this week. So that's what's coming up on Thursday. Next week. Now, I've been mentioning that we have some announcements related to the show. And I just mentioned about the fact that we're doing this 10 o'clock p.m. time slot right now. Now, listen, 10 o'clock's not a stretch because we've been really, doing 10 o'clock all for the longest time because I've been late. We've been starting late for quite a while now, almost 2 years now. So really, it just got to the point where it made no sense to keep saying 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern and then starting at like 10:30. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we did. But and also the reason why we're doing 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. I don't know. For those of you that have followed our show from the beginning, way back in our days on Blog Talk Radio, way back in October 2010, when we first started, we started out at, I think, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And then we moved to 9 at some point in that first year. And that's when we kind of stayed. And at one point, we moved to 8, and then we moved back to 9, and then we it's been back and forth. We're trying the 10 o'clock p.m. time slot because in the coming weeks, and this was actually supposed to start this week, but I had to postpone it because we're looking for a new site for the show, a new location for the show. And I don't want to get into details, only because I don't want to go into it tonight because nothing's finalized yet. We are looking for a new site for the show. I had one situated, but then the financing for that went through. So I'm waiting to see if the financing is going to become available. And if it is, then we'll go ahead with it. If it isn't, then I'm going to have to find someplace else. And that's what's that's why we have the delay. Basically, the gist of this is we want to create more content. We want to have more shows than just twice a week. Twice a week, at one point it was working out. But I think if we're ever going to do the show the way I want to do the show, we need to have more than twice a week. Now, one of the dilemmas that I have, and I've always had, is that it's hard for me to pick one particular field to go into: sports, entertainment, wrestling. I like doing all three. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, and this is going to be coming up soon too, one of the things we're going to be doing is that we're going to be having 3 distinct shows from now on. They're going to essentially be 3 separate shows. Our main show will be our sports show. I'll announce the name of that soon, which will air most of the week. You'll probably get that like 3 times a week. And then you're going to have 2 shows a week. Well, not 2 shows a week, 2 other shows. One will be a wrestling show, which might not air every week. And the other will be an entertainment show, which will probably air once a week. And I'm just trying to situate how the schedule is going to go. Now, look, at one point I was going to do this thing in the morning, but I decided, my wife made a great point. We've been doing this show all along at night, and to move it to the daytime we did it for the football show, but that was just for the football show. It might be very difficult to ask our audience to shift their shift things to the morning or even the afternoon. You're used to us at night, and I know sometimes we run into going against some big games like playoff games and stuff, but it's never hurt us that much before, so why move away from it? So that's why we're doing this 10 o'clock p.m. thing this week, to kind of try it out and see how people respond to it and see how it goes. So we're going to try it and see how that works out. And then if it does, then we might have hit on something. So again, the original plan was for a lot of this to start this week. But that didn't happen. Like I said, I explained why. I don't know if it will happen next week. My suspicion is that it'll probably start the week after next. But we'll see on that. I really wanted to start it with the first week of the NFL, but this didn't work out. So we'll let you all know. We'll let you all know next week what we're looking at in terms of dates. And then we'll give you more information on what's going to be happening. But what you need to know is that the show is not going away. If anything, it's expanding and it's evolving into really what I always wanted it to be. Now, does that mean we're going to have a co-host? What's the deal with Mike and Justin and any of the co-hosts I've had in the past? I'm not sure yet. Mike would like to be a part of the show, but with his work schedule the way it is and working 2 jobs and everything else, it's been very difficult for him. So I don't know what his job situation might be changing again. So if that happens, that might afford him more time. There's also the opportunity, the chance that if we start to record shows, I've thought about the idea of not necessarily doing every show live. If we were able to do that and we did a show that was maybe recorded ahead and just posted, he would be able to be a part of that. But we'll have to see. I'm working with him on that and seeing if I'd like for him to be involved. I don't want to do this by myself because it can get pretty boring. But we'll see. I don't know about Justin. I don't know about anybody else that's been involved with the show. Right now, it's just me, and we're kind of trying to feel our way through it and see how things, trying things out and transitioning things to where we need them to transition to. I have thought about putting reaching out and seeing if maybe we can find somebody new that's got more availability and that can be here and that maybe is more interested. We all love Mike, and Mike's been great to the show and we miss him. But Mike, the one thing about Mike is he doesn't get to watch, he doesn't get to watch as much sports and even some movies and TV shows. He doesn't get to a lot of it. He's busy. So, maybe finding somebody that's a little bit more, that has more time and is able to keep up with those things and also is more willing to talk about certain other topics, like, football and stuff might be beneficial to us. I don't know. I'm right now, we're still finalizing things and trying to see what we're going to have and what we're not going to have. But I know I've been kind of toying with people over the summer. Oh, we're going to have announcements and this and this and this and this. And we haven't said anything. So I figured tonight I would say a few things and give you an idea of what you're looking at here. And again, we'll finalize things, and probably next week we'll have more information for you and also have some dates for you as to when, everything's going to go down. But the show is not going anywhere. We're not ending. We're evolving. We're becoming something bigger, better, what I've always anticipated us becoming, and what I've always wanted us to become. So that's what's going down. Now, I don't want to waste any more time on that because we got football to get to. We got some week 1. We got to talk week 1. Look ahead to week 2. We got college football. We have some baseball. So we'll do all that here tonight. And again, wrestling, previewing WWE Town of Style on Thursday and Box Office Beat on Thursday. Next week, I'll let you all know on Thursday. Again, I don't anticipate us starting any of this new stuff next week. If we don't start it next week, then we'll probably do the same thing we're doing this week. 2 shows and pretty much exactly what we're doing this week. If we are starting new stuff next week, then I'll talk more about that on Thursday and let you all know how everything's going to work. So there you go. A little bit of information on what's going down and whatnot. All right, so let's do some football. Let's get into some football here. When we were last on the air, we were talking about NFL opening night because it was going on opposite us. Eagles and Falcons, great game. Eagles won that game 18-12, a nice comeback victory. And that really set the stage for what ended up being a fantastic NFL Week 1. For the first time in, I would say, 5 or 6 years, the NFL had a great start to the season and a great Week 1. Because if you look back at the last 5 years, and we've all talked about it. We talked about it ad nauseum in the last few years, and even people like Steve Young have talked about it. September's almost become the preseason in the NFL. These teams do not let the starters and the great players that you're going to see all season long play enough in the preseason. So essentially their preseason becomes when the season starts because they don't want to risk injury. They want to risk injury in games that count. So, chemistry and teams gelling together and all this stuff ends up being delayed further than it should because these guys they get on the field and they're really not ready. They haven't had a chance to play enough snaps, or they haven't had a chance to work out, chemistry and some kinks with new players and even returning players. So we've seen a decline in the quality of play at least in the first month to 6 weeks of the season in the last 4 or 5 years. Especially once the new CBA came into effect, because so much was involved in player safety and not having the two-a-days and all this other stuff, and that resulted in what we've been getting the last few years at the beginning of the season. But this first week, for the first time in 5 years, you did not see that on display. You did not see too much of a drop-off in quality. Yeah, there were a couple ugly games, but they were, even those ugly games were compelling. Take the Philly-Atlanta game. That was an ugly game. But the Eagles eked it out, and that's what people like Steve Young are saying, a lot of people are saying. Find a way to win in September. Because you know what? If you can, by the time, and you get into October and you start, everything's kind of gelled together and you're ready to go, you'll be in good shape. You'll be in good shape. And that's what the Eagles did on Thursday. They found a way to win the football game. And that's a win that's going to mean a lot to them because of the fact that they would get that win when they didn't play at their best. Now, for Atlanta, it's going to hurt more. But when you look at what happened the rest of the weekend with the Saints, now the Panthers won, but you look at what happened with the Saints, you don't feel so bad. You don't feel so bad. Now, again, that game was ugly, and it was a nice comeback win for the Eagles. But you look at a lot of the other games this weekend, you saw some offenses that really, really, really took it to some teams. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Indy even had good offense in that Cincinnati game. Tampa Bay and New Orleans, which was ridiculous. Cleveland showed you some signs. Pittsburgh wasn't too bad. New England was solid. Kansas City was great. Hell, I even thought Miami was great in that game against Tennessee. It's like all the delays in that game, which was didn't look too bad. Washington looked good. Green Bay, we'll talk about them later. Great. The Jets last night, great. Lambs in the second half of last night, great. So you saw some offenses that clicked from the beginning. Now, of course, a lot of those offenses, have a lot of returning players, or they might have featured young quarterbacks like the Jets, who did play more snaps in the preseason. That might have helped them to get ready for this game, their games. So that might be critical to that too. That might be reason why. So again, a much better quality of play, even though there were 3 ugly games, than you would have seen in week 1 in recent years. You saw enough upsets and great games to keep you interested. Some interesting, compelling stories sprinkled in. All in all, it ends up being a nice mixed bag of variety and a great start to the season. A great start to the season. Now, it's very important, though, even if for the teams that won, that you don't put the cart before the horse here, because some teams had great wins, but you almost have to, even though they played well, put an asterisk next because they played teams that are really just not quite there. How much of it was the team that won versus the team that lost? Because you saw, like, let's take, for instance, obviously Atlanta's going to be fine, so we're not going to read too much into them losing the Super Bowl champion. Who cares? Take it, for instance, San Francisco in Minnesota. Do you panic on the 49ers? 49ers, one of my super teams. Do you panic on the 49ers because they lost to Minnesota, who's one of the teams that people think could go to the Super Bowl? No. Minnesota got even better. They went and got Kirk Cousins. They got even better than they were last year. It was a 24-60 win. 49ers were right there in that game on the road in Minnesota. You do not panic about that game. It's a great win for Minnesota, but I think it's an indictment on how far the 49ers have come. They didn't lose that game. They only lost by 8 points. It's not a bad loss for them on the road. How about Cincinnati-Indy? How do you read that game? Indy, You might get a little bit worried about them because their defense got racked up and they blew a lead. So if you're Cincinnati, how much of that is that 34 points you scored and that big comeback, how much of that is the Indy defense? And how much that was you? Now, I saw it. Cincinnati played very well in that game. Andy Dalton played well. Of course, Cincinnati always plays well in the regular season. We've well documented how they play. So I don't want to take too much away from Cincinnati, but we also know that Indy's defense stinks. So, you maybe take that for Cincinnati with a little bit more of a, you kind of just keep in the back of your mind, remember, you're playing a bad defense. Now, if you're Indy, you look at it from this standpoint, Andrew Luck looked great. Your offense looked great. You moved the ball well. So you look at it from an offense standpoint, great. From a defense standpoint, terrible. Now, Cincinnati's not a terrible team. They didn't play very well last year altogether, but they're not a terrible team. In the regular season, they usually do pretty well. So, the worst part is you lost at home. But if you're Indy, I don't think you worry too much that you lost to Cincinnati, but I think you worry a little bit about the defense. You know that you have to figure something out with this defense. You're not a good defensive team, but you can figure things out. We've seen the Saints where they're not a good defensive team, but they figure out ways to stop people. That's what Indy needs to figure out because the offense is there. And if Andrew looks healthy and he plays the way he did on Sunday, they're going to win a lot of football games. They can even play halfway competent on defense. So there's some positives to take away from this game if you're the Colts. But you got to fix the defense. Now, Baltimore-Buffalo. That's the epitome of an asterisk game. I'm not saying the Ravens aren't good. Their offense is much improved, and their defense, I think, is going to be back this year. But Buffalo was so bad. From the minute they started Peterman, and I don't understand why they did that, you trade Tyrod Taylor so you can go draft a young quarterback in Josh Allen, and you don't even start him in week 1 when he's your best option. Why? You start a journeyman third-string quarterback that ends up with a quarterback rating of 0.0, which is probably too generous for how awful he was in that game. Why on earth you would start him against a Baltimore Ravens team? I don't know. Oh, well, we're afraid of what Josh Allen. No. Throw the rookie out there. See what you can get. Let him take his lumps. He will learn. Buffalo made a terrible decision with the quarterback, and then they played, and you could tell from the beginning that the team not necessarily gave up, but the team did not believe that they were put in the best situation to win that football game. You could just tell by the way they were acting, particularly on offense. And then as soon as Josh Allen comes in, I don't know he scored a field goal, but you could tell the vibe was different. The team bought into Josh Allen. They saw that he was their best opportunity to win. So like as soon as Josh Allen got in the game, the rest of the Bills were like, oh, well, here's the guy that we feel confident in. I just don't understand what Buffalo and Sean McDermott were doing. It's a terrible, terrible move to have Josh Allen on the bench to the fourth quarter. You started Peterman, that was bad, but then you wait to the fourth quarter to put the kid in. Terrible decisions all the way up and down. Buffalo just played terrible all around. So if you're Baltimore, yes, you were impressive. You saw some things you liked. We can go on, but really it comes from an ass because Buffalo was just bad. They set themselves up to fail just by who the quarterback was. So that one you don't get too excited about if you're Baltimore. It's a win, yes. And for Buffalo, you write that one off and say, next week we start Josh Allen. Enough of this nonsense where they're still evaluating the quarterback situation. You can't start anybody else but Josh Allen on Sunday. Start him. See what you got. Give yourself a chance to win. See what you got with this kid so you don't waste your time any further beyond the season. That's the way it has to be. Baltimore, though, you get the win. You dominate. Now you look and see what you do next week. Because Buffalo just wasn't all in. They just weren't. They set themselves up to fail. So that one comes with an asterisk. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. We've talked about Tampa Bay for years and how Tampa Bay has a tendency to beat the good teams in their division, especially at home. They did it again. Now, do you worry if you're in New Orleans here? Does this win? Yeah, you do. You never worry about New Orleans offense. You never do. They got a good backup to Drew Brees and Teddy Bridgewater, so they're all set all around on offense. But it's the defense. And whether they can get enough out of it to win football game. And in this game, they did not get enough out. Their defense got torched in this game. And that's why they lost. You score 40 points, you should win the football game, especially at home. They did not defend the football, and that's why they lost this game. So if I'm New Orleans, I'm worried that to a team like Tampa Bay, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but the guy's not that good. You made Ryan Fitzpatrick look like Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. That's embarrassing. Their defense just did not show up, and that's something you got to worry about if you're New Orleans. If your defense doesn't show up, you're not going anywhere. You got Atlanta in that division. You got Carolina in that division. You have got to play better defense. Look, we've seen enough teams, including New Orleans themselves, that don't have good defense, but still find a way to get enough out of it to hold the other team down enough so their offense can do this to win the game for them. They didn't do that on Sunday. And Tampa Bay got away with a win. For Tampa Bay, there's no asterisk here. It's a win's a win. But for New Orleans, you look at this from the standpoint of we know our offense there, our defense is not. And if we don't get our defense, it's going to be a long year. So you worry if you're New Orleans. If you're the Giants, do you worry? What was one of the better games of the weekend? Do you worry if you're the Giants losing 2015 to the Jaguars? No. The Jaguars were one of the best defense, if not the best defense in the NFL. They have a really strong front four. They're just a good team. And with Tom Coughlin there, his big return to New York, it was a big deal. No, I don't worry. And the Giants had a chance to win that game at the end. I like what I saw from the Giants. I thought Barkley was good. I thought Eli wasn't too bad. Odell had his moments. I thought the defense tried to get to the quarterback enough, put some pressure on. It's a tough loss. I really like what I saw from the Giants on Sunday, even in the loss. And I like what I saw from the Jaguars. I think both teams came out in this game looking good, seeing a lot of promise. I can't say the same thing about New England and Houston. New England just looks solid all around. They do not look as good as they did last year, especially in the receiving core. But they look solid enough, and that was a solid win for them at home. Solid enough on defense, solid enough on offense. Really, And that's what New England usually is early in the season. Remember, they're very vulnerable in the first part of the season. When they get to the late in the season, they become very tough to beat, especially at home. Houston, they only lost by 7, but you feel like they should have lost by more. I didn't like what I saw from Deshaun Watson. He didn't look ready to me at all. He looked like he still needed more time. Off the injury last year, he did not look good to me at all. Did not look as explosive. Just did not look great. And I didn't think their defense looked great either. So I'd worry if I'm the Texans off this game. I really would. I mean, New England doesn't do anything to you defensively that would really, make you look that way. The fact that you look that way is because of yourselves, not because of anything New England did. That's what should be concerning to them. I think if you're Cleveland, you take a lot out of that tie with Pittsburgh. First of all, I hate the fact I hate any game that ends in a tie. They should just keep playing until they can figure it out. But look, Pittsburgh, I thought, played very well up until the fourth quarter. I thought they played 3.5 really good quarters. I thought their defense did well. I thought Cleveland played a really good game. I thought Cleveland handled things defensively well. I thought they moved the ball well. I thought they kept themselves in it when Pittsburgh was throwing a lot of different things at them. I thought Pittsburgh played well. I know people are going to say, well, that game should never have been close to you. It should have been all of them. But without Le'Veon Bell and them still trying to adjust, I thought they ran the ball very well. I thought they did a lot of good things. So I like what Pittsburgh did. I like what Cleveland did even better. And Tyrod Taylor with the 2 touchdowns to bring him back. Buffalo's going to look. Tyrod Taylor is not going to knock your socks off, but he's a competent quarterback. And I don't understand. I never will understand why Buffalo just got rid of him when he led him to the playoffs. He's a quality kind of guy to have either as a backup or somebody that, you know what, can transition you and at least make you competitive, transition you to another quarterback, you know, like that in between year between an old quarterback and a young quarterback. He could be that guy. But he also could be the guy if, you know, you don't have any other better options and you just want to stay competitive. He can do that. And he kept Cleveland in this game. Remember, we said last week Cleveland's going to throw everything but the kitchen sink in there. They thought of that game like their Super Bowl. They wanted to end their streak, get off to a good start. Well, they didn't win the game, but they didn't lose it. And they showed you a lot in this game. They're not going to be a pushover this year. And they really played, especially late in the game, they played great. Made stops when they had to, made plays when they had to. And in a tie, you come out of it with a lot of being very impressed with Cleveland. And with Pittsburgh, you worry a little bit about how they end the game, but that's typical Pittsburgh. They sometimes, you know, you never know what you're going to get sometimes quarter to quarter, but especially including and also game to game. They can be like that. Some days they can look great, and some quarters they can look great, and sometimes they vice versa. So, so good for Cleveland getting the tie, but Pittsburgh, you know, they look good for 3.5 quarters. That outside of that though, kind of fell off a little bit. Tennessee, Miami had unbelievable circumstances to play through. The delays with the lightning, and you know, it was the longest game I think in what history. You know, started at 1 o'clock and end till 8. But Miami gets the win, and I thought Miami did a very good job. It was kind of like New England; they just played a solid game on both sides of the football. And you know, Tennessee, you know, had a hard time getting things going offensively. Defensively, they weren't too bad. Nothing overly worrisome, but you know, but Miami gets the win. Again, just try to find a way to win in September. Kansas City, I thought offensively, we talked about how Pat Mahomes was going to be. They believed in him. There was a lot of hype around him, and he showed it. He was fantastic. Their offense looked good. Mahomes looked good. Defensively, they could have been better. I think that's where Kansas City is going to be very vulnerable is on defense. But they're not as bad as the Saints or even the Colts. They have playmakers, so they're going to be able to hold other teams. And that was the difference. You know, they held the Chargers to 28. 28 is a lot of points to give up for if you're a defense, but you know, you're going to be more about your offense. So you know what, you figure if we hold, you know, as long as we can try to hold you down as much as possible, we should be able to win the game, and that's what they did. And that's what the Saints and the Colts have to do: try to hold down the other team as much as possible, and just try to score enough points. Kansas City did it, so they come with a win. Offensively, they were impressive. Defensively, not so much. Chargers, I thought offensively were good, but defensively, not so much. So if you're both teams, I think you worry about the defense a little bit. But offensively, I think both teams did very well. Dallas, Carolina was probably the ugliest game of the weekend, in my opinion. Dallas looked awful. And that I don't, you know, I keep saying not to panic in week 1. I think if I'm Dallas, I panic. Because they had a bad offseason. They lost guys. They're not the same team. You wonder about the quarterback if he really was as good as he looked, or if it was just because he had good players around, or the offensive line, which is great. Dallas just looked terrible in this game. Offensively, it was a mess. Defensively, I thought they did okay, but I thought it's hard against Carolina because Carolina offensively is they play ugly football. And, you know, I like grinded out style. We've seen grinded out style with the Bears. We've seen it with the Jets. We've seen it with the, you know, Pittsburgh. And they don't play that kind of grinding out style. They play a very ugly style of football. Let's just try to move the ball. Let's just try to get some points on the board. It's very, very ugly football. It's like Seattle played for the longest time. Ugly football. And so I don't want to take too much away from Dallas. I thought their defense was fine. But I think Carolina's offense oftentimes makes the defense look better than it actually is because they don't really have an offense. They rely on their defense. And, you know, their defense was stellar, but I also think Dallas that's a very different team. A very different team. I know I said last week I thought Dallas could maybe, you know, do some things, but after seeing what they did on Sunday, I don't see it. I think Dallas could have a very bad year. So if I'm Carolina, you know, I kind of put this, you know, to the side and say, you know what, we're just glad we got the win. It was ugly, but you know what, there's going to be a lot of teams out there that are going to be better than what Dallas just threw at us. So let's not think our defense is perfect. Let's not think that we're in good shape. You know, Dallas could just make us look better than we actually are. You know, you only won by 8, but that was an ugly football game. If I'm Dallas, I worry about what this season's going to be. Carolina, you know, it looks like more of the same with them. but I still I still kind of be a little bit concerned that we still got to play this kind of brand of football. We can't be more efficient. We can't be better on offense, more smooth. I would be worried about that. They have to try to find a way to do that, because if they do that, then Carolina would be tough to beat. But last couple of years they haven't been able to do that. So a lot of averages says they probably aren't going to do it. They ain't going to do it this year either. I thought Washington was very impressive. Arizona's not a terrible team. Yes, they're rebuilding. Yes, they're not great. But I thought Washington was impressive. I still think they're a competent enough team that if you beat them the way Washington did it, it should matter. So I don't think this is quite that asterisk kind of game where the other team was just so bad that it made you look good. I thought offensively Washington was good. Alex Smith's a very solid quarterback. We talked about him for you. I'm a big Alex Smith guy. I thought he played great here. I thought their defense was great. I think Washington showed you that really Washington's going to be what I thought Dallas would be last week. That third team in the NFC East that is going to be in there, and who knows, maybe they sneak in somehow. They looked very good on Sunday, I thought. That was one of the teams I was impressed with was Washington. I was impressed with a few teams. I was impressed with Kansas City, especially offensively. I was impressed with the Eagles finding the way to win the way they did. Green Bay, more importantly, Aaron Rodgers impressed me. Denver's wins surprised me. I'll talk about them in a minute. I don't know if they impressed me, but they surprised me. I thought Washington impressed me. Jets really impressed me. Yeah, those teams impressed me coming off of this weekend. But anyway, going back, I mentioned, but except Washington, I really liked what I saw. I mentioned Denver. Now, Denver has Case Keenum, who, for those who don't remember, was the Vikings quarterback last year, so he had a great run last year. He didn't look like he missed a beat. I thought Case Keenum was very good in that game against Seattle. Seattle still, I know people think they're going to fall off a ledge this year, Seattle. They're not going to have, they're probably going to have a good enough year. They're going to be at least in the playoff hunt late. They're still a quality team to play. And they showed that. And they played a very good game defensively. And they did better on offense than they usually do. They only lost by 3 here, and they scored in the 20s. For Seattle, that's great. I thought Case Keenum did a very good job against a very physical defense. And winning that game at home, I think, is a nice little confidence builder for him. And for the Broncos, who everybody thought might not have a great year. Well, if Keenum plays the way he did on Sunday and the way he did last year, Denver's going to be in it. He played very well on Sunday. I was Denver, I guess you kind of put in the back of your mind that this is, again, a team that's kind of on the downward slope here. But again, I thought Seattle played well in this game. They still have a good enough defense, and offensively they can still do enough where when you beat them, it should matter. So I don't think you take anything away from Denver here. But I also think you got to remember, too, where Seattle is at in terms of where they are as a franchise, really. Sunday night game, Green Bay and Chicago. I mean, you can't say enough about what Aaron Rodgers did in that game. That's really what that game was about. Green Bay gets started. Bears were great early. Khalil Mack and Oakland's going to regret, and John Gruden's going to regret letting go of Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was amazing. One of the best performances for a guy defensively I've seen in a long, long time. What a way to debut with your new team. He was great in the game. Green Bay was down early. They lose Aaron Rodgers. You see him getting carted off. You're like, your season's over. And you could tell by Aaron that he thought his season was over. He comes back, leads them, I don't think Aaron had ever did, two touchdowns in the fourth quarter or whatever it was, 3 touchdowns, whatever it was. Leads them down the field, leads them into a comeback, and all of a sudden they win the game 24-23. And again, this is why he's the best quarterback in football. Nobody can do what he did in that game. You've seen the Hail Marys over the years. You've seen the big plays. He is so accurate. He's probably, in my opinion, the most accurate big play quarterback in the game. You're not supposed to be that accurate for 40, 50, 60 yards. He is stellar in that form. He's so good when he has to roll out, when he's on the move. He's so good. Nobody's better than him on the move in the NFL from passing it. Nobody. That's why he gets the big bucks. He is brilliant. He's poised. He is brilliant. And if anybody asks me if I ever had a chance to draft an NFL player first, that would be the guy I draft. He does not fear. He is unrivaled. He is an amazing, amazing, amazing quarterback. And that's why people go crazy about him. He is a stellar quarterback. And to do it in such high pressurized situation for that kind of franchise makes it all the more important and all the more impressive. I thought the Bears played great in this game. Khalil Mack, defensively, I thought they did a lot of good things until late when it looks like when Green Bay just momentum-wise, I really think it was about momentum. Just went at them. I really, yeah, the Bears lost. It was a tough loss, but I thought Green Bay with the momentum of Aaron coming back is really what carried them. Because without Aaron in that game, Green Bay looked like a lost team. If Aaron Rodgers is not on that field, the Green Bay is probably one of the worst teams in football. That's how much he means to them. You saw that in that game on Sunday. He comes back, that wave of momentum was just too strong. It was a huge win for the Packers at home. Tough loss for the Bears, but I saw enough in that game to think the Bears are going to be a team to keep an eye on here. Just really got to get their offense in order, but I think their quarterback situation is okay enough. Defensively, I think they're in very good shape. With Khalil Mack now, I think they're in very good shape. So keep an eye on the Bears, but Green Bay escapes and gets a huge win, and we'll see what happens with Rodgers on Sunday. I imagine he's going to play. He played He played the second half on Sunday. So I imagine he'll play in week 2, but right now we don't know for sure that yet. Pardon me. For Green Bay's sake, I hope he does. Because if he doesn't, they're losing. So, last night's 2 Monday night games. I was really impressed with the Jets. I know Detroit played bad. I know they were able to read their plays. Like, I know they could tell it was coming before it was. But it's been discussed all day today. They well scouted. But look, Sam Darnold, who I've always liked, okay, he does force things a lot. So when I see him throw that pick 6 to start as his first pass, I'm thinking, oh, well, all right, he's going to be some growing pains here early. The way that he responded and the way that he played after that pick 6, the rest of the game, shows you how good he's going to be. And I think, so much of how well a young quarterback does, in my opinion, comes down to coaching and who you have around them. They have good playmakers around him. The pressure's not always going to be on him because he does have good players around him. He has a good offensive line. He has somewhat of a running game. He has a couple of receivers he can depend on. More importantly, again, have an offensive line, okay? More importantly, though, the Jets have a defense. So if you don't make a play on offense, you can rely on that defense. That helps a lot. And Todd Bowles is very even keel. And so much, again, I've said this probably before, again, coaching, but head coach, quarterback makes a difference. Dynamic makes a difference. I think Sam Darnold is a perfect quarterback for Todd Bowles. I think it works well. I think that they blend well together. He's more, I really think it works. And I think you saw that last night. You saw a team that was prepared, all in sync, playing well together versus a team that, and well coached, I should say. And of course, Todd Bowles has been coaching for a few years now, and it's already kind of gone through his learning curve. And on the other side, you got Matt Patricia, who inexperienced. Clearly, his team not ready, didn't make adjustments. And look, Detroit was 9-7 last year. Everybody assumed, I think, that Detroit would be in the mix again this year. But with the Bears getting better, Green Bay in there, and Minnesota, it's kind of hard for them. It's kind of hard. So when we go in this game, we didn't think Detroit was going to be a pushover. I said the Jets were going to win, but I didn't think Detroit was going to be a pushover. Well, they ended up being a pushover. Yes, they did tie the Jets at one point, but then after that, it just was a runaway train. And Detroit, towards the end of that game, they gave up. The Jets broke them. And week 1, a rookie quarterback in the New York Jets broke the Detroit Lions to the point where they just gave up. It was quite the display. It was a great win for the Jets, an impressive win. Even though Detroit played that poorly in all aspects of the game. I don't think you can take away too much from the Jets. I don't think you will full on like this is an asterisk. This is like, hey, you know what? The other team was so bad. You're really not that good. I don't think you do that here. I think the Jets showed a lot in this game. And while Detroit was that bad, I don't think I don't think you're being overconfident and being excited about what happened last night if you're a Jets fan. I think you buy it. And I think you buy it. This team could be better. I think they could be better than people think. I think some people said 8-8, 9-10. I think they could be better than that. I think they could win 10 games. I think they could potentially sneak in the playoffs. I really believe that. I think they're that good. I think Sam Darnold's that good. I didn't think Detroit would be this bad. But that doesn't take anything away from the Jets. If you're Detroit, you worry. If you're the Jets, I think you get excited. The second game, the Rams and the Raiders, you give the Raiders credit for showing up early, keeping that game close. Once it got to the second half, the Rams just went off, showed you the team that they're going to be. They're going to be very much in the mix in the NFC. Great performance by them on offense. Gurley was great. Defensively, I thought they locked it down in the second half. In the first half, not so much. Second half, I thought they played great. Oakland played great in the first half. Second half was bad. Again, they're going to rue the day they let go of Khalil Mack. They really are. And Gruden, I thought Gruden was terrible last night. Coaching wise, he's a good coach, but I get it. He was in broadcasting, and his profile has increased a lot. But he acts like he's not very genuine. He acts like he's a character. He acts like he's still broadcasting on the side of the field. It sounds like he's mugging for the camera, and he's portraying a character, which is weird for a head coach. I almost think it's a distraction. But I thought the Raiders played terrible in the second half, and I don't think the Raiders are going to have a good year. First of all, they can't keep Carr healthy, and I think getting rid of Khalil Mack hurt the defense a lot. So, I think on both sides of the football, it's worrisome there for the Oakland Raiders. But for the Rams, I think you saw what you expected to see, at least in the second half, which is that Rams team that's going to run the ball, can put up points in a hurry, and defensively can do a lot of things too. So when you put all this together, it's a stellar week one. Upsets, some solid wins, much better quality play, a few ugly games, but even those ugly games had some compelling storylines too, and lots of compelling narratives to be in play. Some big wins, and it really just all in all, a very, very good start and a much better quality of play than I think anybody would expect it for week one. I really think the NFL's got to be happy with how they started, and not too many distractions off the field. I know the Colin Kaepernick stuff and all that stuff and everything, but even with that, I thought generally, I thought the week went really well for the NFL. I think it was a great start for them. I think a great start to the season. Much better than anything in the last 5 years. I hope for their sake that they can keep it up. Because, if they can keep it up and get through September, then they'll have some good momentum for the rest of the season. That's the thing that's hurt the last few seasons. So hopefully for their sake, they can keep it up. So a very good week one, very good start to the NFL season. And how were we on our picks for week one? I had Minnesota over San Francisco, so that's a win. New England over Houston, so that's a win. Giants over Jacksonville, that's a loss for me. Dallas over Carolina, that's a loss for me. Never bought into Dallas. Don't worry, I won't make that mistake again. Green Bay over Chicago was almost a loss, but ended up a win for me. And Jets over Detroit Lions, another win for me. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-2 for week one. So that's not too bad. Nice start, solid, nothing great, nothing huge. 4-2 for week one on my NFL picks for this season. So now we go to week two and make some picks here as we move on to week two of the NFL season. And a very impressive slate of games here after a very good start to the season with week one. Pretty good slate of games here. this week. Some interesting stuff. Just like last week, I thought there was some interesting games, which is probably why it was such a good week one, in addition to the quality of play being surprisingly better. Then we got a Thursday night game this week in the form of Baltimore at Cincinnati, which I think is a great game between two rivals. Cincinnati, it's a big win, a big game for them to prove that last week wasn't a total fluke. For Baltimore, same thing. For which wasn't a total fluke. But other than that, you got that game's on the NFL Network, by the way, on Thursday, 8:20 p.m. from Cincinnati. And here's the rest of your lineup for week 2. Carolina at Atlanta, 1 o'clock p.m. on Fox this Sunday. Also on Sunday, Chargers at Bills, 1 o'clock p.m. on CBS. Vikings at Packers, 1 o'clock on Fox. Houston at Tennessee, 1 o'clock on CBS. Cleveland at New Orleans, 1 o'clock on Fox. Miami at New York Jets, 1 o'clock on CBS. Kansas City at Pittsburgh, 1 o'clock on CBS. Philadelphia at Tampa Bay, 1 o'clock on Fox. Indianapolis at Washington, 1 o'clock on CBS. And then your 4 o'clock window of games, Arizona at the Rams, 4:05 p.m. on Fox. Detroit at San Francisco, 4:05 on Fox. Raiders at Broncos, 4:25 on CBS. Patriots at Jacksonville Jaguars, good game, 4:25 p.m. on CBS. And then your Sunday night game, classic rivalry again, second straight week. Last week was the Packers at the Bears. This week it's the Giants at the Cowboys, 8:20 p.m. Sunday night on NBC. And your Monday night game, not too bad. Seahawks at Bears, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. So a couple good games. You know, the rivalry game on Thursday were Ravens and Bengals. I like Carolina, Atlanta. That's a little bit of a rivalry on Sunday. Minnesota, Green Bay is a good game. Kansas City, Pittsburgh. Indy, Washington. Detroit, New England, Jacksonville. Dallas, New York. And even Seattle, Chicago. Some good games on tap. Some good games on tap for Sunday. Some very interesting games. So let's make some picks. Let's have some fun here. Make some picks here for week 2. I'm going to go with the Raven-Bengal Thursday night game first. Really what this game comes down to for me is which team do I buy more off of last week against it, because they both played, you know, Cincinnati played an Indy team that I don't think is a bad team. I think they're better than people give them credit for. And they came back and won that game. But Indy's defense is so poor, you wonder how much that was their defense instead of Cincinnati. Baltimore played a Buffalo team that was so bad, and they started essentially was a quarterback that shouldn't be playing. So you wonder how much that was Buffalo and how much that was Baltimore. To me, Cincinnati played the better team in the Colts, even with their poor defense, and looked better in victory than Baltimore did, because Baltimore just played such a bad team, in my opinion, with Peterman at the quarterback position. Buffalo's not terrible, but when you put that quarterback at that position, when you put Peterman at that position, you make yourself a bad team. I'm sorry. You don't give yourself a chance to win. So that makes you look like a worse team than you actually are. So in my mind, Indy was the better team. Cincinnati played the better team in Indy. So I'm going to go with the Bengals, because I think that means, to me, that means that the Bengals were more impressive and won the better game. So because of that, I'm going to pick the Bengals over the Ravens. I actually think the Bengals might be better than the Ravens, especially in the regular season. Playoffs, who knows? Even though I think the Ravens are going to have a better offense this year and a better defense this year, you know, I think the Bengals beating the Colts the way they did probably means more than the way that the Ravens beat the Bills. So Bengals over Ravens in Thursday night football. All right, now I'm going to go to the Sunday night slate of games. First, I'm going to pick the Panthers at the Falcons, 1 o'clock p.m. on Fox. I like Atlanta here. Atlanta's very tough to beat at home, so that's a big thing here. But also, I trust their offense more. Carolina's got an awful offense, even defensively. You know, even though they're very good defensively, I think the Falcons have a good enough offense for Julio Jones and Matt Ryan and company to find ways to score. They have enough weapons to find ways to score on a tough Carolina defense. And Carolina's ugly offense is going to work against a very, very solid defense in the Atlanta Falcons. And so I like the Falcons at home over the Panthers on Sunday. Minnesota at Green Bay, 1 o'clock p.m. on Fox. I like Green Bay here. Green Bay's, again, it comes down, in my opinion, to home field. And coming off that momentum-building win last week with Aaron Rodgers coming back the way he did, I think that's a lot of momentum to come into this game with. Offensively, as long as Rodgers can play, I think Green Bay will get it done. Defensively, they're good enough. The Vikings, I like Kirk Cousins, but he makes a lot of mistakes. Sometimes he's very, very streaky. Defensively, I think they're very strong, but I think the Packers are so with Aaron Rodgers there, they can find ways to score on any defense. So to me, it comes down to whether the Vikings offensively can put up enough points to stick with the Packers. And at home, I think it's going to be very hard for them to do that. So I like the Packers over the Vikings this weekend. And Kirk Cousins, again, when you put him in a situation where he has to make more plays, sometimes that's worse because he does try to force a lot of things. So, all right, what's next here? Kansas City at Pittsburgh. Great game. Pittsburgh coming off the tie last week against the Browns. Kansas City coming off a big win, which really showed how good their offense was, but their defense left the rock to be decided. That's the thing I worry about in this game, especially in Pittsburgh, is their defense. And because of that, I'm going to pick the Steelers because even though the Steelers are without Le'Veon Bell, they still have Antonio Brown, they still have Ben Roethlisberger, and they can still run the football effectively, and they still have their defense. The Chiefs are all about their offense, and I think the Steelers will do enough to hold them down enough on offense to keep up with them. I like the Steelers to eke one out at home against the Chiefs here. And I think this is where the Chiefs' defense is going to really come back to bite them. The Steelers are going to probably move the ball very well, and that's going to allow them to keep up with the points of the Chiefs. So Steelers over Chiefs on Sunday. What else here? How many games do I have to pick here? We got, 4? Oh, boy. I don't know if I want to pick the Indy-Washington game. See, I think the Giants are going to beat the Cowboys pretty handily. I don't like what I saw from the Cowboys at all last week, so I'm not going to pick that game. I think that game's going to end up being a blowout. And Seattle-Chicago, I don't know if I care enough about to pick that game. I usually like to pick the Sunday night and Monday games. I don't think I'm going to pick them this week. I think I'm going to pick the Indy-Washington game and the Patriot-Jacksonville game. So Colts at Redskins, 1:00 p.m. on CBS. I like to pick the Colts here because offensively they show me a lot. As long as Andrew looks healthy, I think they're going to play that I think they're going to play that well offensively. And if they play that well offensively, they win a lot of games. I just don't trust their defense, especially on the road. And the Redskins, I saw a lot from them last week offensively. If Smith continues to play the way he is, I think they'll be fine offensively. And defensively, they can do. They're good. They're solid. So because of the fact that they're a much better team defensively than the Colts, I think that's the difference maker, and that's why I'm going to pick the Redskins over the Colts this weekend. And one more pick, and because again, Colts are on the road, so road games are hard in the NFL. We all know that. So unless you're a really good team that can potentially win on the road, it's hard to argue against picking the home team in any respect. All right, final game to pick: Patriots at Jaguars, 4:25 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Great game. Rematch of the AFC title game. I like the Jags. Again, New England very vulnerable oftentimes in the early season, especially in the first month, 2 months or so. I thought the Jaguars played a better game last year than the Patriots. I just thought they took their foot off the gas and allowed the Patriots to come back in that game. Jaguars played the Giants last week very well. You saw how good you saw that their defense hasn't missed a beat. They have a very good front four. They're very good defensively, and offensively they just do enough. They just find ways to run the ball. Now, if Fournette don't play, I'll make it even harder against the Patriots. But something they can find a way to get it done. And this game being in Jacksonville, I think is key. I like the Jaguars to win a very close game over the Patriots. That's kind of like my upset pick of the week. So I usually like to pick one upset, whatever it is. So here are your picks for week 2 of the NFL season. Bengals over Ravens, Falcons over Panthers, Packers over Vikings, Steelers over Chiefs, Redskins over Colts, and Jaguars over the Patriots. Your picks for week 2 of the NFL season. We'll obviously go over them next week and look back at them, look back at all the games for week 2. What looks to be a week 2, very good week 2 with a couple of really good games just like last week. I think we're going to have another good week, which will be a great start for the NFL season. So that's your week 2 NFL picks, and that's your week 2 NFL preview along with your NFL discussion for this week. But we're not done with football yet, even though we're done with NFL, because we're going to jump to some college football. And I don't have a lot to talk about here. Again, college football for me, until the playoff rankings come out in late October, not much to talk about here because there's just not too many good games early in the season. There might be a few here and there, but you don't have a lot of good games. And you're still kind of trying to see which teams are in the playoff hunt firmly, and not just because they were ranked higher to begin with, and which teams aren't. It's hard to kind of get into it and kind of figure things out. So, yeah, so it's kind of hard. So it's really just about going over the games that you think are going to be good this week and looking back at the week before and seeing if there's anything earth-shattering that happened. And really, last week, there really wasn't anything earth-shattering that happened in week 2. No, no really big upsets. Everything pretty much went, everything went according to plan. You know, all the higher ranked teams won. No big teams lost. I mean, Michigan State lost to Arizona State. That might be the only one that quantifies, but I didn't think Michigan State was that really good anyway. So, yeah, nothing earth shattering. Florida lost to Kentucky, but again, that would be the only two things that would be, and again, none of that's really earth shattering. So nothing to really talk about coming out of week 2. Week 3, you look on the board as far as games go. Not a lot here. Only couple games. There's a couple games in the late afternoon on Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS from Auburn, Alabama. You have the number 12 LSU 2-0 at the number 7 Auburn 2-0. That's a good SEC game. That'd be one of the probably the best game so far of the season, in my opinion. I like Auburn there because I think Auburn's a very good team. I expect them to be in the playoffs this year. But boy, LSU's been very impressive too, and they're off to a good start. So, that should be a very good game to play Auburn, a 10-point favorite there. I'd like Auburn, but LSU is not any slouch. You also have Boise State, 2-0, number 17, Boise State at 2-0, number 24, Oklahoma State, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. That should be a nice little wide-open offensive game. I could actually see Boise State winning that, even on the road. I think it's a nice wide-open kind of offensive game. Ohio State TCU, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time Saturday on ABC from Arlington, Texas. To me, that's going to be an Ohio State blowout. TCU number 15 in the country, 2-0. Ohio State number 4 in the country, 2-0. They have not missed a beat about Urban Meyer. I think that's good. I think that's going to be a blowout. I don't like TCU at all this year. I've liked them in the past, but I don't like them this year. I don't think that game's going to be of much interest at all. And other than that, that's it. There's no other big games, really. Nothing else to really mention. I will say this: Oklahoma Junior running back Ronnie Anderson will miss the rest of the season. So that's a huge blow. That came out yesterday. That's a huge blow for Oklahoma. It might hurt their chances, but so then they're a good enough team to probably make the playoffs. But so that's a big blow. So that's a little bit of piece of news, injury news there for in regards to college football and in regards to particular to Oklahoma. But yeah, there's nothing else. There's nothing big to talk about, Now, the one thing to mention here is that next week, week 4, you're starting to head towards conference play. So not everybody, but you are. So, that's going to help things, I think, a little bit too, and get things going and everything. So, but again, for me, college football doesn't really, to me, get going until you get those first playoff rankings in October and see where everybody stands. And then it just adds something so much to the games. And you start, and then I think the games get better too, because they try to stack things a certain way where you play rivals, or you play a lot of the good teams in your conference late, so that these games take on a huge amount of meaning because you have the playoff rankings and everything else. So yeah, people want to know why I don't talk long about college football. Well, there isn't a lot to talk about. Early season's not a whole lot. There might be a couple, maybe 1 or 2 good games a week, and usually the higher the better team wins those games, and away you go. So not much to talk about. So you can't talk about something if you don't have a lot to talk about there. So yeah, that's all I got in college football. But I do have a lot more I can talk about on baseball. And we are. Right now, we are down to the nitty-gritty, folks. We are down to I think every team is at 20 games left or lower. So you're really in the final days here. We're really in the final 2.5, 3 weeks here of the season. Hard to believe, but it's where we're at. And what has transpired since the last time we kind of looked at where everything was over a week ago, or I should say since Thursday? Well, I think as you would in September, you get more credit. Now, Boston clinched a playoff spot tonight. They're the first team to do that. And of course, they've also won 99 games, so it's no surprise there. Um, let's see what else has happened in the last week. Well, some races have become. I think we're going to really be watching the NL more than the AL, because if you look in the AL, Boston already clinched a playoff spot. The Yankees now 9, so they're not going to. What's happened to the Yankees now? They lost to the Twins tonight. So, I was one of these people that stupidly over the last week thought there was still a chance they could maybe somehow get the division. There's not now. You're 9 games back. Even if you win all 6 games against the Red Sox, you're still 3 games. So it's just not enough time. So Yankees are going to be a wild card. The question is going to be, are they going to be the first or the second? Because they're only, look at the wild card standings here. They're only 2 up on Oakland, who's won 5 in a row. So that's scary for them. It's a scary proposition to not only not win the AL East, but to be the second wild card, which would mean you got to go all the way across the country to Oakland and then fly back if you do win that game to Boston, where that's the team you're going to play in the first round. The Yankees got to figure out a way to get that game in their building, because otherwise I don't like their chances. I really don't. So Oakland's close within 2. Tampa Bay had made so many waves. Tampa Bay, 8-2 in the West End, but they lost tonight, so they dropped back. Tampa Bay had gotten to the point where they had leapfrogged over Seattle. They were right there, 7.5 back of Oakland, but they lost tonight. I just don't think they have enough time. But I think Kevin Cash should get manager of the year, because they're 79-65. 2 months ago, we were talking about them being barely above 500. People were going crazy because they were beating the Yankees in their building. I was like, well, what's wrong with the Yankees? Well, nothing's wrong with the Yankees. Tampa's just good. They've swept the Red Sox. They beat a lot of good teams. They're 20 games over 500 at home. They have a halfway decent road record. They might be one of the wild card teams right now. They've had a great season in a year where people thought they were tanking. So Tampa had been making a little bit of a late push, but I just don't think they have enough time. Seattle has fallen off. They're 8 out off the wild card pace, so it's not enough time for them. So I think you can firmly eliminate Seattle and Tampa right now, because Tampa is just, again, just run out of time, and they kind of had a couple of tough losses where they dropped back a little bit, and Seattle has fallen off. So I think both those teams out of the mix. The wild cards are going to be the Yankees and the A's in the American League. It's no matter what order they're going to be in. That's going to be critical, I think. Really, I think, to which team wins the game. I think the home team wins that game. I really do. I think that's how much that home field is going to matter, in my opinion. Obviously, the AL Central race has been done for a while. Cleveland is going to be in. They got Andrew Miller back, so hopefully, for them, their bullpen situation will be in good shape, and they'll be ready to go to play Houston, because Houston's going to win the AL West. I mean, Oakland's still close enough. They're only 3 back. But I think Houston has stabilized enough to probably be able to stave them off. So I think Houston will win the AL West. Oakland will get the wild card, one of the wild cards. Yankees will get one of the wild cards, and Cleveland's your AL Central. So you're looking at, winner of the wild card versus the Red Sox, and Indians versus the Astros. That's what you're looking at here for the AL. So that's your teams. We know the teams in the AL right now. I better any huge miracle. Only things we do not know is, obviously, everything has to be made official. Houston, Cleveland, Boston, magic numbers and all that division stuff will be made official. But we know they're going to more than likely win the divisions. All we don't really know is, will the Yankees host the game, the wild card game, or the A's? We know what the seedings will be. We know what the matchups will be. So, yeah. Can Oakland still somehow catch the Astros? Sure they can. 3 games is not a lot with 18, 19 games left. But I just think the Astros have stabilized enough to be able to stave them off. So, but we know what we're looking at in the AL. The NL, not so much. The Braves have opened up a 5.5 game lead on a Philly team that's 3-7 in their last 10. So they are fading fast. The Nationals, we know, are off the pace, so we don't look at them. So Phillies are fading fast. Contrast that with the Brewers, who have closed within 2 games of the Cubs. So that division's still up for grabs. Cardinals have dropped to 4 back. So the Cardinals have fallen on some tough times lately here, and so have the Cubs. So the Brewers making and the Brewers did a lot of stuff at the trade deadline. So they're definitely going for it, and they're not giving up on the division just yet. They're right there. Meanwhile, the West, the Rockies have stabilized, even though it's only a 2-game lead. They still have a 2-game lead, as opposed to being tied or up a game or so. They've stabilized enough to be able to hold that 2-game lead. The Dodgers are that second place team 2 games back, and you still have the Diamondbacks at 3.5 back, but they are fading fast. The Diamondbacks have lost 3 in a row. They're 2-8 in their last 10, so they're going the opposite way. The Dodgers also going the opposite way. They're 5-5 in their last 10, lost 2 in a row. Meanwhile, Rockies are 7-3 in their last 10. That might be the difference. If the Dodgers and Diamondbacks can't get this thing going next few days, this division's over. It's over. So big time, big couple games here coming up for the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks to see if they can get this thing going in the right direction again. The shocking thing about Colorado is that they're better road record by 1 game than they do at home, which you expect the opposite because they always played well at home and they have a little bit of an advantage at home. But so the NL still has some races to be determined here. The Central's still close enough at 2 games difference, and the West still close enough with 2 games difference. So, 2 close races there in the NL, and of course the Phillies can always get back if they have a couple good days and the Braves fall off. But the Braves look like they're ready to solidify themselves at the top of that division. So, a couple good races division-wise for the NL. Wild card race, though, very interesting. Brewers up 2 games for the top wild card spot on the Cardinals, who are up 2.5 games on the Dodgers, 4 on the Diamondbacks, and 5.5 on the Phillies. Phillies fading fast in that race as well. Phillies are right on that line where if they don't get off that 5.5 game line, they're going to be out of it as far as the wild card goes. And really the division, too. Diamondbacks, same thing. They're very close to the edge of falling out of that wild card and also soon enough in the division. Meanwhile, the Dodgers still right there. Cardinals in good position. So, again, close race in the NL wildcard. So really the NL is where a lot of the compelling races are at here. The NL West, the NL wildcard, the NL Central, and of course the NL East could tighten up again. But right now it doesn't look likely the way the Phillies are going. And then the AL, I got the AL West, Oakland's still only back 3. They could conceivably make that interesting still, but not very likely. So other than that, though, it looks like a lot of those races are over in the AL, and we know the teams. It's a matter of will the Yankees get the first wild card or the A's? Because they'll determine who will host the game. So that's all that really has to be determined there. So again, it's good for baseball that we have some races here that look like they're going to at least come down to the last week of the season, as opposed to the last couple of years where by middle of September everything was pretty much done. It's just about seeding and such. Some races are not going to be as close as we would hoped, but it looks like it looks like Major League Baseball is going to have at least a few races that are going to be dramatic down to the end, and that's better than nothing. Better than nothing. So, and it's all on the NL side, but yeah, like I said, better than nothing. So, a couple interesting things in terms of scores for tonight. Top of the 9th, St. Louis up 11-5 on the Pirates. Top of the 9th, the Diamondbacks lead the Rockies 6-3. That'd be a big win for them. They need that in the worst way. Top of the 6th, San Diego and Seattle tied at 1. Atlanta up 3-0 on the Giants, and in the bottom of the 6th they go there. Philly loses another one tonight, 3-1 to the Nationals, who are playing spoiler pretty nicely. Astros beat the Tigers 5-4. Dodgers are lose to the Reds 3-1. That's a tough loss for them. Oakland beats Baltimore 3-2. Washington, Philly played a doubleheader today. They lost both of them. Washington beats by day, the Phillies. Washington beats the Phillies in 10 innings, 7-6. Boston beats Toronto 7-2. Cleveland beats Tampa Bay 2-0. Yankees lose to the Twins 10-5. Cubs beat the Brewers 3-0. Big game for them there. So that's what has transpired today. So some big wins and some big losses, and today for some of these playoff teams, or teams in the playoff hunt. A couple other things from baseball over the last wow. Think, Brian, think. Week, Chris Sale returned for Boston. Um, Today, and he returned for an inning, and Boston clinched the playoff spot. So that's how they. So yeah, so Chris Sale back. They've been, obviously he's been having some injury problems. They need him. If he can't get healthy, they're not going to win. I'm telling you right now. So they need to hope that he gets right. Oakland A's pitcher Manaea has had surgery. He may miss all of 2019, so that's a big loss for them. He's been great for them this year. And a lot of talk this week about Josh Donaldson. For those that do not know, Josh Donaldson, Toronto Blue Jays third baseman Josh Donaldson, was traded to the Cleveland Indians right before the waiver wire trade deadline on August 31st. Josh Donaldson has been on the DL since May. He had been it had been said that he was going to come off the DL. He was healthy. He gets traded to the Indians, and then he gets put right back on the DL. This has upset, this trade, a lot of the AL contending teams. The Astros, the Yankees, Red Sox were all upset. The Astros apparently talked to the league about it and were satisfied with the reasoning behind why it happened. The Yankees and Red Sox are still not satisfied, and they're very upset because he should have been traded if he was hurt. If he wasn't hurt, if he was available, obviously they probably would have liked to make a move on. They just feel like they just feel like it was the wrong way it was handled, was the wrong way, and you can't blame them because the guy, I think one of the quotes that was used was, "Well, the guy must have got hurt on the plane," because they claimed he wasn't hurt when they made the trade. So, yeah, there's something fishy about it. That deal should have never happened. It's wrong that it happened. But you know what? It's done. You can't do anything about it. The guy's on the roster, and if he's healthy, then he's going to help them. He's going to really help them if he's healthy. He's a big bat, and you wonder if the Indians even need another big bat because they do have a good offense, but they get another one. They get another big bat, and we'll see if he's healthy enough to help him. But I can definitely see why any teams would be upset about this because it is very fishy and it does ring very strange that he's out since May and he's going to be healthy, he can be traded, and as soon as he gets traded he puts back on the DL. It's a weird situation there. A lot's been said about David Wright in the last few weeks. Mets third baseman David Wright, who's been injured, and that guy, I don't think he's played like a full season since 2015. David Wright would like to play for the Mets again, and there's some talk of having him play, in the final month of the season, kind of like a goodbye because he's not going to be back with his team. They're clearly going to be rebuilding and moving on and all that kind of stuff. But apparently there's a feeling he won't get that chance. Maybe the Mets don't want him to play because they have to pay him and all this stuff. There's a lot of things. I'm just going to say this. I don't want to get into the details of it because a lot of it, who knows? I don't know. I know a little bit about it. I've been hearing bits and pieces about it. That David Wright has meant so much to that Mets franchise. Because whenever they've been good in this past 20 years, okay, it seemed like David Wright was a part of it. He was their Derek Jeter for the longest time. He was their leader. He was their cornerstone. And he was nothing but a great teammate and a great guy to watch. And you had to respect him because he carried himself with a lot of class. It's unfortunate that he's had these injuries, and there's been times when he was very inconsistent from a playing standpoint. But I think he still, even when he wasn't there, even when he wasn't healthy, and even when he wasn't a consistent performer, he still meant a lot to that team. If I'm the Mets, do not let this end in a bad, negative way. Let him have his moments, bring him back, Let him come up with the team. He's been playing simulated games. Apparently, he's satisfied with where he's at. Bring him up, play him for a few games there. Let him have some closure. Let the fans have some closure. Make it a positive ending. The Mets have enough problems. They have enough negativity. Let's have something positive. It's the right thing to do. Don't worry about the money because that's being petty and that's being stupid. This guy's giving a lot to you. Let him have his moment. Let the fans have their moment with him. If you don't, ends in a very negative fashion. That's just another thing you did wrong if you're the Mets. You don't want to do that if you're the Mets. You don't want to have another thing wrong to add to the list. You just don't. And I think we talked about this last week. I can't remember, but Shohei Ohtani is going to have. It's been recommended he's going to have Tommy John surgery. I think he's already had it, or if not, he's going to have it. And the question is going to be, well, is he going to hit? Is he going to pitch? Is he going to do both again? What's the deal? It's hard to answer that question because how long has it been since we? I mean, look, it's not like we deal with a guy. I can't remember how long it's been since we had a hitter pitcher in the league. I don't even know. I have to look it up. It's not something you see. Not something we deal with, okay, on a regular basis. Obviously, he was still hitting up until he had to have the surgery. He was still playing. I think they're going to have to make a decision. I get that the Angels are like, well, we negotiated with him. We said that we let him do both, and things have changed. The guy got hurt. Okay, I'm not going to get into whether I think they did wrong here. They brought him back. He pitched and he got hurt again. Whether they I don't think he aggravated. I don't think the Angels did anything wrong here. Okay, I don't think they did anything wrong here. If anything, they treated him with kids' gloves all year. And I'm not even going to, the Angels should have known that there was something going on. Shortly after they signed him, they found out about the elbow and all this. Look, these Japanese pitchers, they throw a lot of innings. It's different over there. Okay, I think you have to go into anytime you sign a guy from Japan. I think you have to go into it the idea that there's a possibility if they're a pitcher that something could go wrong. You have to know that risk. All right. I don't know if there's something they can see. I don't think there was anything concealed or anything. Okay. I don't want to go down that road. So we have some information that suggests that there was. Just dealing with it as it is right now. If I were the Angels, I would talk to him throughout this process and say, we're going to have to pick a route. By route, I mean, you're going to have to pick one or the other. I know it takes away a lot of his appeal, and Major League Baseball really loved the idea of this guy being both. It was a good story, but for his long-term health and really for the team, I think they have to choose one or the other. I really do. I think they have to choose one or the other. Now, look, he ain't gonna. If from a pitching standpoint, he ain't gonna play next season. He'll be ready for 2020. Maybe best case scenario, maybe he comes back in September of next year. Maybe. And I know people are going to say, "Well, why didn't you just do this to begin with? He might be able to come back." And again, you didn't think this was going to. They thought they were going to be able to make it better on its own. Look at what happened to Tanaka. He's been pitching with it for 2 years. The injury in his elbow. Can go at any time, but he's been pitching with it. That's what they thought they were looking at. It got worse. Now he needs it. You can't blame him. Can't blame the team. Can't blame him. Now people say, "Well, wait a minute. Okay, he might not be able to pitch till 2020, but maybe he can come back halfway through next season." I don't know. Here's my thing: if the Angels and him come to an agreement and say, "You know what, you're not going to pitch anymore. You're going to be a hitter," then maybe he can come back next year. if that's the case. If it's not, then I don't expect to see him next year because, that would mean to me that he's going to pitch. He's either going to do both or he's going to pitch. So then he doesn't come back till 2020. He ain't coming back next year to pitch unless it's in late September, and that's being optimistic. If he's hitting, he could come back next year, I suppose. But that's up to them. That's up to him. And it's up to the team. That's something they have to work through. If I were him, I'd go hit. I'd be a hitter. I would. I mean, I don't think he's a bad pitcher. I think he's about a slightly above average hitter. You know, but I think that if you're I think you look at the standpoint of, well, I got hurt pitching, and maybe I can have a longer career. I've already had a lot of innings on my arm. Maybe I can have a longer career in this game from being a hitter. Now, some people that think, well, maybe you should be a hitter for a year and then go back to pitching. I don't know. That might be dangerous to take a full year off from pitching. But there's people that think, oh, he'll save a year off on his arm. Maybe that'll help his arm, last longer. And I mean, there's a lot of different things. It's such a different situation because of the kind of player he is. My opinion, though, if I were him, I'd pick one and I'd pick hitting. I think it might mean a longer career. I don't think he'll pitch a very long time. I think, I think when you have these Japanese pitchers, they've thrown so many innings that when they come here, it's just you just don't know how much you can get out of them. Sometimes you get lucky, you get a lot out of them. But there's injuries in play and whatnot. I'd rather err on the side of caution and say, hey, go hit because I think I can get more out of you from a hitting standpoint. A longer duration of time and playing time. And it makes the contract worth it that way. Otherwise, you pitch him, he gets hurt again, and then maybe spending most of that contract hurt. It means that essentially the contract didn't work out. I think the contract has a better chance of working out if he decides to hit. And you get more value out of him that way, I think. But that's up to them, and they got to decide. I do think they have to pick one or the other. If he comes back from the surgery and he's still a two-way player, he's still a pitcher and a hitter, I will be shocked. I will be shocked. I'm not saying it would be the wrong decision. They could be. I mean, maybe they would prove me wrong. I don't know, but it would surprise me because I do think they feel like they do have to sit down with him. They do have to have him make a decision. I do feel like that, but I don't think they want to do it yet. And I think they're worried about it because when they negotiate with him, it was you're going to be a two-way player. That's what we're agreeing to here. That's why we want you. And they feel like it's a violation of the negotiation with him if they try to convince him that not to do that, to not be a pitcher, or choose one or the other. I should say. They feel like that they're violating the players' trust in them and the contract, and I can understand that. I understand that. So. All right, we did everything we have to do. That's all the others. Oh, one more thing. I didn't put this in the show description, but we were talking sports, so why, we've covered enough baseball, so let's just do this. Serena Williams. People have been asking my opinion on this Serena Williams thing. I'm not going to go into it too much. Just going to do it really briefly, my opinion. The person I feel bad for is the person who won. But she was brilliant. She was brilliant. And she didn't deserve that. And I thought Serena could have done a little bit more to get the attention back on her. Because that was her moment. That was Osaka's moment. And I think she got lost in all of that. And I don't think that was right. And yeah, Serena did try, but she could have tried a little bit harder. Because the crowd was all on her side and was completely ignoring the fact that Osaka won fair and square. So I felt bad for her. Her moment got taken away from her by this nonsense. And it was nonsense because the umpire was wrong. The umpire shouldn't have done it. Apparently he has a history of this. So you know what? They better deal with him. But Serena, and I don't have an issue with her fighting against the guy, the umpire. It was stupid what he did. She had every right to be upset about it. It was wrong. And it was the wrong call. And she had every right to be upset about it. When was sexism in play? Maybe. Who knows? I can't say one way or the other. I just know that it seems like that umpire has issues and it needs to be dealt with. So hopefully it will be. But I do think at some point Serena should have let it go. And I think that she should have been at the end. She should have made sure that the crowd's not booing Osaka and that it was still Osaka's moment. And not just the aftermath of Serena and the umpire's situation. That's what really left me with a bad taste in my mouth, was that poor woman's moment got taken from her because of all that drama. Again, I'm not saying Serena was wrong to go after the umpire. And the umpire was definitely wrong. But at some point, it should have been, you know what? I've said my piece. I'm going to deal with this privately. You know, let's leave it at that. And then at the end, Osaka wins fair and square. Let her have her moment. And then, you know, later on, you deal with it in the press conference and you talk about it in private and that kind of thing. That should have been the way it was. Instead, it becomes this big display and it takes away from a woman's moment that she might never get again. She might never win another major. She might never win a big tournament, never have that spotlight on her again. And that moment gets taken from her because of the stupid drama. Because an umpire made a ridiculous call and apparently has a history of this kind of crap. And, you know, Serena defending herself and, you know, making her case, which she had every right to do. But then Serena at some point just should have stopped and said, you know what, this is not getting us anywhere. It's not the right time and place to go any further with it. I would like to talk about this matter behind the scenes later on. And that's it. That was her mistake. She should have backed away at some point. And then again, made sure that Osaka got treated better at the end. Those were her two mistakes. Like I said, the umpire was wrong. So that's all I got. I can't really say anything else about that. The umpire was wrong. Serena should have at some point backed away from the situation and dealt with it behind closed doors. And then she should have made sure that Osaka still had her moment. But that wasn't fair to her. That really wasn't. I felt horrible for her. I applaud Serena for standing up for herself. Again, I don't think she was wrong to do that. But after a certain point, you do realize it's not getting anywhere to keep going with it. It's like, you know what? All right, you and me are going to talk about this later. Moving on. And you talk about it after the match, off, you know, off to the side or in, you know, at the press conference or behind closed doors, whatever the heck what has to happen, and you let Osaka have her moment. That's what should have happened. It's a shame it didn't. I don't fault Serena for defending herself. The umpire was wrong. I just think she should have let it go. Let it get you know, kind of backed away from it at some point and dealt with it later on. That's what I think she should have done, and then helped out Osaka at the end there with the crowd. That's what I think she should. That's what I think she should have done better. But other than that, I think she had every right to do what she did, and that umpire was terrible to do what he did. So, all right. With that being said, we got through everything we had to get through. Again, this was only a sports show, so we had football, we had baseball, we went through in the Serena Williams stuff. So we got through everything we had to get through. So it's time to wind down. As always, the show might be over. It does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to our show. Continue to have your voice heard by sending us your, continue to have your voice heard. Send us your questions about the show, the scheduling of the show, topic ideas, or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, wrestling that you want us to cover, reactions, opinions, and questions about things we talked about on the show, things we said, questions about the show and the schedule of the show, any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And you can, as always, you can find us on Facebook. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure that you like our fan page once you find it. So you can follow us and all that good stuff. Again, follow us on social media for the latest information about the show, scheduling updates, updates about postponements, delays to the show, any other random stuff we like to post. To have access to all that and more, make sure that you follow us on our social media pages on Twitter at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding the show. And again, on Facebook, just search In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and then like our fan page so you can follow us anytime and interact with us and all that good stuff. You have two ways to hear about the show and look back at classic episodes. You can either stream us anytime on our main host sites, on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. When you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites where you'll find every episode we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. So those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. If streaming's not your thing, maybe you prefer to listen to us on the go, or just prefer to listen to us rather than see us on screen. Or you're interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. When you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites. We'll have access to every episode ever produced in the nearly 8 years we've been doing the show. That's every episode from original Blog Talk Radio Run from October 2010 and January 2011. All of our Talk Show episodes from January 2011 all the way up to mid-October of 2015. And all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from mid-October 2015 all up to tonight's current episode. All those episodes transfer into audio format for your convenience. Every episode is available in audio format for your convenience from the most recent episode, that being tonight, all the way to the oldest way back in October 2010. Those episodes are available for you to listen to anytime you want. Maybe you're a long-time fan wants to check an episode from way back when again, or a new fan wants to check an episode from way back when for the first time, or you keep up with current episodes, or miss an episode, miss a part of an episode, and you want to check those episodes out and, catch up or whatever the case may be, you can do all that and more on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. So again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your ways to keep with the show. And look back at classic episodes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. I'm going to search for In the Spotlight 411. Wow, that was a lot. I got to cut that down soon because when we start the new stuff up, because it's a mouthful. And I'm finding myself stumbling over it. You probably noticed I stumbled over myself a couple of times during that. My apologies for that. Sometimes it's so hard to say all that. Got to condense it. Gotta. All right. Shout out again to my co-host Mike here, and not here tonight. See, stumbling again. Shout out to him. Hope everything's going well from. Hopefully he'll be back with us soon here as we start the new stuff up in a couple of weeks here, or whenever we start it up. So shout out to him. Hope everything's going well for him. Continue to think about him. Thank myself for another great show and pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching, listening to this later in archive, thank you to you as well. That is it for tonight. Our next show again this Thursday, September the 13th, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Again, remember the 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern start time once again here. We'll do Box Office Beat. That'll be our only entertainment stuff when something else pops up that we have to cover. And then the rest of the show, we'll be talking wrestling. We'll do Raw and SmackDown highlights. We'll preview WWE's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view coming up this Sunday on the WWE Network. We'll talk about that and any other big wrestling stuff we have to do. Maybe we'll even do questions and comments again. We'll see. I'm going to try to see if I can get Mike to do the show. If we do that, then we'll do questions and comments. So you can send them in before the show as well as during the show. And if we do them, we'll pick some. If we don't, then, they'll just kind of sit there and we'll do them next time out. We haven't done them in a long time, so I'd like to do some. So a little bit of entertainment and wrestling on Thursday for our second show of the week. And I'll update you on Thursday as to whether we're going to start the new setup here with the show next week or the week after. It's going to be one or the other, I imagine. Get you more information about what's going to be coming up on the show and all that good stuff on Thursday as well, more than likely. So tune in on Thursday for that. I'll also give you some statistics about the TV awards on Thursday as well, because people have been asking about that. So we'll do all that on Thursday. So that's what you got to look forward to this coming Thursday for our second show of the week. So until Thursday, I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great Wednesday, and a great Thursday. We'll see you back here this coming Thursday night, September the 13th. At 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Remember, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. That's the time for the show. Until then, have a good night, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.